Mic check 1, 2. Mic check 1, 2.
Last year was the zucchinis would come and launch your car doors because they want to raise
That's right.
We're up. Okay. Well, welcome to the November 2nd meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. We're meeting here in the fire station, and also it's available by Zoom. The Zoom information can be located on the town website. There are a couple of public hearings, so during that we will take questions from the audience and also solicit any questions that might be coming in from the Zoomers. Anyway, this is a long, we have 6 items. This has a potential that when it gets to be 9 o'clock, if we haven't started item number 6, we won't start item number 6. That's the rules of planning board, is we do not start a new one after 3 hours into the meeting. So that said, I will look at attendance, and everybody is here, but for everybody out in the audience, if you're a voter in this town, we lack 1 member, so please come volunteer, talk to town hall, and anyway, that's it. So the attendance, we are all here. So, okay, first piece on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the last meeting. And Tricia just issued a slight revision after some comments came in, so I'll take a motion to.
I'll move to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, well, I guess I'll take it by Ed,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Tom, yes,
Scott.
yes.
Approve.
Okay, good. So that's done. So our agenda, the first item on the agenda is 220902 Woodland Drive, Duncan McDougall, Coastal Creations agent, and it's a continuation of the initial review. And we just got a whole new package. Now, if everybody had a chance to review it, it was pretty sizable, and it did come in outside the, came in real late, but anyhow.
I'm okay.
So if there aren't any objections, I guess we'll proceed on this item. So, if we can have the presenter get up there and give a brief description for those that are here and on Zoom.
Yeah, I'm Duncan McDougall, and, excuse me, we're looking to basically take a 9.7 acre lot in a previously approved subdivision and split it in half to build 2 houses, so effectively adding 1 more lot in this 1980 approved subdivision.
Okay, so my first question may be for Werner, but this is listed as a new subdivision with the title Woodland Road, rather than a modification to a 1980.
That's right. So this is so for purposes of this application, what you have here is you have a revision to a previously approved subdivision, that was done in the 80s. Yeah.
Right.
So this is a request to do an additional lot in an old subdivision.
Yeah, well, the last time we had one of these, they had to change the name of the subdivision and all sorts of other stuff. The last time we split a lot in half.
Well, yeah, I mean, the splitting of a lot that wouldn't trigger a change in the subdivision name.
So this is a brand-new subdivision called Woodland Road, which consists of 2 houses on Woodland Road, but not the whole set.
No.
No, it's a revision to a previously approved subdivision
Okay,
that,
Maybe it didn't have a name.
yeah, I'm not, I mean, it was a subdivision that was done by the Seashore Company. And it wasn't uncommon for subdivisions to not necessarily have names associated with them. Oftentimes, they just had the road associated with them.
okay.
I think we saw that, some some had a family name, associated with it. Some were more formal than others.
Yeah,
I think, having subdivision names is a more recent item in the subregs.
Okay.
For purposes of this, I don't know that it's necessary that it be named specifically.
all right. Now, one little problem, and this goes back, it's in the Registry of Deeds this way, so I looked it up, but the lot plan that was included in this package from the Kennebunkport Seashore Company doesn't have Woodland Drive on it, although the Woodland Drive is in the reference material in the Registry of Deeds, but it is not physically on that drawing. It doesn't go far enough up.
I'm sorry?
If you look at the picture,
So
One of-
you're looking at the 1980.
the 1980
Okay.
plot does not go far enough north, or whatever direction that
I
is.
see. So in terms of the
include-
intersection with,
It doesn't
South.
show Woodland Road on it at all. And it was, I checked, that's exactly what it is in the Registry of Deeds.
okay, yes. So, I mean, I think what we have, what you have now, though, I mean, I would, the applicant has provided a survey that's been done by a licensed surveyor.
Yeah.
That identifies, what the current, bounds of
Okay.
the right-of-way are located. I mean, I'm not a title expert, and,
Okay.
wouldn't,
At several places in the 3-point font that makes up our description of this stuff, there are several points which is deferring to, well, we didn't have to do that in 1980. Okay? So is that the case, since Seashore Company didn't do this in 1980, and this is because this is a modified plan?
so.
Therefore, we don't have to do those things now.
Well, under your subregs, it talks about that, it directs the board that whenever you have a revision, to a previously approved plan, your focus is specifically on the revisions
Okay?
of that plan.
Okay, so this is
So the focus, the focus of the application is the
Okay, but
additional
it's not
split,
labeled
the sub-
revision in any way on the paperwork.
subdivision in its entirety.
The paperwork does not discuss the word revision in the paperwork.
I see.
So it's not, it's either a brand-new plan, or it's a revision to an old plan that nobody can locate.
I mean, isn't technically every piece of land we're sitting on in Kennebunkport been subdivided at some point in time prior to 1980? Might have been the 1700s, might have been the 1800s, don't know when it was, but those regs apply to anything else that's getting, that applies. How is this accepted? And is there another example of a subdivision prior to 1980 that has asked to subdivide even more? I'm not saying we can't do it, I just...
Sure, no, I mean...
Is there a precedent for this?
I mean, this exact subdivision has previously gone through that. It went through that in the early 2000s where if you look at Lot B was previously subdivided by another property owner, essentially that made the exact same request. So that's the example that I would point to.
But because the original subdivision of this property was prior to 1980, none of the other requirements apply to it. Is that correct?
None of what other requirements?
Wetland surveys, that sort of thing.
So when you're looking at a revision, right, of a previously approved plan, so which is what this is. So we have a 1980 plan, that was signed off by the Kennebunkport
Right.
Planning Board.
Right.
And so whenever you're looking at a revision to that plan, the subdivision regs direct you to look at the specific request in terms of what is the applicant asking to do. And that's the focus, of your review.
Okay.
And so the applicant has provided a survey with wetland identification on it, on the subject lots that are the
Okay.
subject of the request.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, I just noticed a lot of places in the little tiny print on this that they're saying we're not going to do this because they didn't have to do it in 1980.
Well, it's a request, so it's my understanding that the board wanted some additional information, from the past. And so when I met with the applicant, I said, well, go down through the list and, you're entitled to ask for waivers for information. And in some cases, it was I directed the applicant to identify where that information was located on the plan. So, some of the items were saying, where's a deed reference? Well, it's located on the plan. Wetland information, well, it was identified on the survey plan that was provided. So some of it was just pointing out where that information was located. And then other information, the applicant has the right to request a waiver, which is what I understood, what the board wanted to see.
Okay.
That's correct,
That is correct.
yeah.
Let's see if I can find one. A list of proposed restrictions and covenants that will apply to eventual declaration of condominium and/or homeowners association agreement if applicable. And the answer to their answer is, it was in the 1980 plan. So I'm used to seeing a sample of what their HOA is going to look like for these two houses or for the plowing of the road, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think if that's additional information that, that the board, wants to request, the applicant, can provide that.
Okay. So there's probably, can be provided with the final. I mean, it's something we can list that as an
Sure.
item that needs to
Yeah.
get into the final. But,
It's
yeah.
my understanding that there's no proposed changes to that original, to that, original document,
Yeah.
that identified the lot owners as being
Okay.
members of an association.
Can we locate that original document? All we got was a plan that doesn't include Woodland Road.
Sure, yes, yep, yeah, we can locate that.
Okay. All righty, let's see what else. So we need to deal with there were some waivers you specifically asked for. And so we probably, So the first thing we need to do is the length and width of the road. I guess the width, you're doing 20 feet, so that's fine, right?
Yeah. I provided a letter from the
Yeah,
fire chief for
yeah.
both width and length.
I don't think we got a request for a waiver for the length of the road.
And what is the length of
No.
the road?
It was asked.
It's whatever it was. He's not changing it.
That's right. I mean, the length of the road was established, when the original subdivision was
Okay,
done
but he's putting in
in the
the
80s.
the turnaround, and, I mean, the,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah. And
He's
there was-
improving it, I think.
Yes, I agree, oh, there's no question, he's improving it. Yes,
When we last met, I asked the applicant to go back to the fire chief and get another letter.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did, regarding the road. And this is sort of an area here, length of road and width of road waiver provided by fire chief. It's not provided by the fire chief. That's really another request for a waiver from the planning board. The fire chief is basically approving what you want, which gives the planning board some support to grant that waiver. So I think you have to consider that as another.
what is the
waiver.
length of the road?
Nina,
Well, that's
there has
the thing.
not been a request
No, there's.
by him for a waiver for the length of the road.
That's right, that's right.
Except right here, on this piece of paper in 3-point font.
He's asking for a waiver?
Yes.
Where?
I thought you weren't asking for a waiver.
Length of road and width of road waiver provided by fire chief, whatever that, no, it's,
But the waiver is not provided by the fire.
waiver isn't, so if you need a waiver,
So-
you need to ask us for a waiver.
Right.
Right, so,
But he has.
But
And the length of the road is already established. Right.
So no-
you don't need a waiver for
That's
length,
not-
and you don't need a waiver for width because you're putting plenty of width.
Right.
So that line on your document just goes away. That's
Okay.
fine. Okay,
the
good.
waiver there.
Like that.
Length is already established by the meets and bounds of the previously approved cul-de-sac.
Okay, so, but you are asking for a waiver of high-intensity soil survey because you've just, you said you've done wetland surveys.
And we're talking about the subdivision of the one lot into two. That
Yes.
area.
just
We're
that
not-
area.
Right.
Do we feel that we don't need a high-intensity soil survey for
Well,
dividing that
that's-
lot into two?
I think that's the case. I just want us all to agree to that
No, I'm
Quincy
still
requested the waiver.
focused on the road. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with respect to the road work. If he wasn't subdividing this lot, he wouldn't be before the planning board. The
No.
work on the road would be an improvement of an existing road.
Right,
And he'd be just dealing with the code enforcement office.
yes.
Right.
So,
This
yeah,
is
we're,
strict
the
focus
waiver,
on that lot.
right.
Yeah.
The length and width of road, not an issue. Okay?
No, I understand, but also the wetlands that abut the road at various places. That's not part of our
No, that isn't part of us
purview
for
either.
this. We're just
Okay.
dealing with splitting that lot in half
Perfect.
and being very happy that he's improving the road.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay. So there was, in addition to the high intensity, there was the hydrological study. I think he's saying he's done a wetland survey, not a full up. And so that's, I think, that's fine. If that needs to be waived, we'll certainly can waive it.
Right.
The tree study, what about trees?
Well, we established that it was already pretty much cleared,
It's already pretty much cleared,
so
so
there's no need.
there's no need for that, right?
Right, so that could be granted.
Yeah. Oh, and the hydrological is only if it's under
100,000 square feet.
1,000 feet or something, and it is, they're big lots. And obviously, we don't need a traffic study. We
Right.
have to waive it officially.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow, I don't have any more questions. Does anybody else have questions?
No.
I just wanted to mention, I saw on your plan there, you mentioned the two trees that are at the end of Woodland Drive where they connect with South Main. If there's any trimming to be done there, I think one of them's right up against the road. you might want to check with John Ripton on the Shade Tree Committee to see if that's a tagged tree. You would need permission to trim those trees.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, so anyone else up here have questions?
No. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
So, all right, so why don't we open, I guess I'll open the public hearing on this guy if, and,
Well, so
no?
you're just at an initial review.
That's initial review.
Yeah. You had a continued initial.
Oh, this is a continued
Yeah.
initial, I'm sorry.
Right.
So let's approve it as, let's,
Can we just clarify? As I read it, you've made the decision to go with well water?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because I know that was still, you were still weighing that the last time.
It says well.
okay, so,
They just paved South Main Street, so we can't cut into it.
6 years.
All right.
Yeah. And so, did we decide that no waivers are required? Is that where we are?
we will have to issue waivers, specific waivers during the final.
Finding of fact.
What we usually do is is put them on the table, usually after we've decided it was complete. But we can do it now or do it afterwards, but we also do it a second time for the final.
But the waivers that are required are for the hydrologic study?
There are 4 of them. One is the hydrologic study, the other is the high-intensity survey study, the other is the tree survey, and I forget what the other one was.
Traffic
So,
study, okay.
Traffic study.
Traffic
Okay,
study.
got you, all right,
27 at the
thank you.
bottom is also the erosion, said if we were.
Actually, the hydrogeological assessment does not need to be done because your lot size is
Bigger than-
too big.
Yeah.
So that really is an NA, not something we need to waive.
Right,
Right.
so there's only 3 waivers?
Yeah, there's
are
3
going to be-
waivers.
3 waivers, okay.
Say them again, please. The tree study, the traffic study, and what was the third?
High-intensity soil.
Thank you.
Also at the bottom of that is number 27, the erosion, because this property's not in the watershed of a great pond. And the impervious surface added from roofs and driveways for one more house is not more than 5% of the overall area of the subdivision. That's at the bottom of that page.
So you're saying that it's NA, or you're asking for a waiver, saying it's NA,
Well, if I
right?
need a waiver, if I don't,
He doesn't
and you agree
Well-
that it's NA.
He just provided additional information on the application.
But a waiver is not required?
Waiver is
So
not
there's just
required.
three-
Right, it
three-
doesn't, but, it's providing additional information so that,
Okay,
Yeah, you
good.
know.
So just 3 waivers are going to be required? Okay, good.
Okay, just correcting my notes here. Okay, anyway, I guess that's about it. If, are we ready to say the application is now complete?
I think so.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to find the application complete.
I'll second that.
okay, so I'll go, Ed,
Yes.
approved, Scott?
Approve, yeah.
Okay, so, 2 weeks hence, we will be doing a public hearing on this item. And at that time, we can officially approve the 3 waivers
For the preliminary application.
for the
We're gonna-
preliminary
we're gonna do
application.
this.
Yeah, we have to do it again.
Do we, is there any way we can cut this process short and say that we believe this can serve as the final? In as much as this
I
is
don't
really
believe
only the
so.
subdivision of one lot?
Ask the man over there.
Do we have that within our power?
let me dig into the subregs a little bit before I give you a kind of off-the-cuff answer on that. I
We
know
have 2 weeks, so,
you
yeah.
can-
Do you understand why I'm saying it?
Sure,
Yeah.
no, I understand.
Yeah. If you can assess that by the next meeting, then maybe we can
You know,
solve it and
I
just
can
write
say
a
For sure, you do
FOF.
have, you do have the, the discretionary authority to decide whether or not you want to hold a public hearing on it, but whether or not you can, step over, the final process. Let me dig into it and I'll let you know.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Yep.
So we're
All
going
right,
to have a
so-
public hearing next time, or not?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
We're going to have a public hearing next time. Okay.
Next time, public hearing for sure.
All right, great.
Okay, and the only thing we don't have is
Yeah, you want the road association stuff.
yeah, I do want the road association
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm willing to wait for that until the final, if we have a final.
Yep.
Yes.
What exactly would you like for the road association?
It's a document that already exists. I believe it's actually, maybe, it's referenced, I think, in the deed, but maybe a separate recorded document that identifies all the property owners, all the lot owners as members of that particular road association.
Says what they're responsible for.
Right. Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
It's for sharing plowing and such.
Yeah, I'm not sure it gets quite into that level of detail, but I
It's
know,
pretty vague,
I do
if
know
I
it
remember
exists.
correctly.
Yep.
Pretty vague.
I think we looked at it.
Oh, okay.
before, but-
So if you can get us a copy by next
It does
time, we're great.
exist, right, yeah, I think it's something we can put our hands on in short order.
Okay. Now, we don't have a
Okay.
a person in charge of this one, a case manager. So,
We don't.
we don't. I thought we did.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Because I didn't assign case managers when I handled it, and then he
Okay.
skipped one.
So I will take it. How's that for a deal?
Great.
Okay.
And this is a letter, right?
It's just a.
Well, yeah, it's a letter that I write, but I'm basically,
Thank you.
if we go to finding of facts, I'll do that too.
Okay.
Okay, that brings us to a second item, and that is,
Yeah.
You're done, Duncan.
you're done.
Good job,
Thank you,
by the way.
Duncan.
Yes.
Okay, this is item 220903, 58 Langford Road. Eric Peterson, Peterson Design Group is
Okay.
representing it.
58.
And this will be a public hearing, but not yet. First off, we have to discuss it amongst ourselves if we have issues, so.
If I have issues. I'm Eric Peterson from Peterson Design Group in Kennebunk. Happy to be here to talk about 58 Langford Road. This is an existing house that we are proposing to do a less than 30% upward expansion to, and also consolidate the footprint and move it further away from the water and further away from the side yard setback line. So we are also looking to minimize the lot coverage. Right now, the lot coverage is 51.2%, and we are looking to reduce it to 35.66%, mostly by reducing hardscape and driveway. The existing building is 1,348 square feet for footprint, and we're proposing 1,337 square feet footprint. The existing area of the building is 1,738 square feet, and we're proposing 1,939.5 square feet, which is an 11.6% increase. The existing volume of the building is 12,344.84 cubic feet. We're proposing to build 15,892.39 cubic feet, which is a 28.74% increase. Like I said, lot coverage has been reduced from 51.2% to 35.66%. We're proposing to raise the building so that it meets the proposed flood elevation, and the underside of the house will not be used for anything other than storage. So what looks like outwardly like an additional story is just the space under the house. There's no living space or mechanical uses or services or anything like that. It's strictly storage.
Okay, you stated that it is moving it away from the ocean,
That's correct.
except that it isn't.
Say again?
It is not. There's a little, if you look at the outline of the original house on your drawing, and you look at the new house on the drawing, you have this 23, there's an indication of 23 feet
Correct.
going to the edge of the house, but in fact, if you look, there's another, whatever, I didn't scale it off to know that
5.
In fact, there's a little area underneath there that is closer to the ocean than the old house.
That portion of the house is closer to that portion of the cove, if you want to call it that.
Yes?
The main body of the house, we moved the house back from the ocean, the main frontage. That's what I was referring to.
Okay. Similarly, the deck extends, I guess, southward. Southward, where you show the 11 feet,
Right, that's right.
okay?
West.
But in fact, at that point, the old deck had ended.
The end of the old deck had ended,
Yeah,
so we pulled it back and over a shade. That's right.
but moved it closer to, you moved it down. So it's still not clear to me that you are less non-conforming after you've done this entirely.
One thing we could do is move it we moved it further away from the lot line. It's very close to the lot line on the opposite end of the house. You can see that on the, if you want to call it the,
Oh, on the north end, there was 5 feet?
where the 5-foot dimension is on the east side.
Yes.
We pulled it away. It's very close to the property line there, so we moved it inboard a little to try to center it a little bit more and have room to work around that side of the house.
Do you have any comparison of the square footage that you moved back away from the ocean compared to the square footage of the little bit you've got coming down to the southeasterly?
That's a good question. I don't have that exact, I know what you're looking for, the delta between
Yeah.
this area and this area.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
That-
Well, if you gave me a minute, I could probably do some quick measurements and try to give you that number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But overall, it looks like you moved, if you look at the delta and so forth, if you look at how much it was closer to the ocean, it looks like you moved back further overall.
I believe that's true, that
But
that
it-
it went less to the side than it did
Yeah.
coming back. That's right.
Yeah, and it would be nice to know that, the actual figures on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we can, if you don't mind me doing that on the fly, and Ralph may have some things that he'd like to say about it.
And just quickly for the record, Ralph Austin, I represent the applicant tonight along with Eric. Our position is that when you look at whether something is less or more non-conforming, instead of looking at individual sections, you really need to look at the totality of the circumstances. And I don't have the numbers, that's what Eric's going to work on now, but when we moved it away from the sideline and we moved it significantly, in our view, significantly back from the main part of the ocean, yes, it is a little closer on that little southwesterly curve in, but the overall change in decrease in setback or increase in the setbacks is more than that little bit of the closeness to the ocean on that curve in. So again, when you look at the totality of the change, it overall is less non-conforming.
Yeah.
But I understand you need a number, and hopefully Eric will have that.
Yeah, it would be very helpful to have the exact numbers on that.
If I understand, I'll save this to Eric. I'm not going to ask you that.
I'm not the architect.
Why did you only do 11 feet? Yeah, all right.
All right, rough numbers. It looks like the amount that we pulled it back, this area, is 260 square feet.
Wow.
Got it.
Little drama for us.
Wait now.
Do we know who did that?
Yeah, me.
Okay, good. Don't do that again. Sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
Is this on? I don't know, can you hear me?
No,
I think
that's
it's
the
on.
problem I've had.
260 square feet was moved back, 130 square feet was moved to the side. Half.
Okay.
Give me those figures again.
260
And 130.
and 130.
And 130. Okay.
The net is we moved it back 130 square feet more than we moved it to the side.
Right, got it. Understand.
And the closest approach before was 11 feet. As I read this drawing, from where the deck,
Well, it was less than 11 feet.
It was less than
That's
11.
what we're proposing.
Less.
It was more like 7 feet.
and the approach on the bottom, because I think there's an argument that says if you, the closer you get to the water, the worse the nonconformance is. It's not all square foot is not the same.
Sure.
But you haven't moved closer to the water than you were. You've still got 23 feet.
Is a lot further than 7 feet.
Yeah.
That's right.
I found myself wondering why the whole rest of the lot wasn't considered, though, to move it further.
There's a sewer pump there too. See that circle right outside the front door? That's our sewer,
Yeah.
that's our sewer connection there.
And you want to maintain that.
Okay.
And we also get closer to there's a neighbor behind, that the further you push it back, the closer you get to the neighbor's house too, which would seem less than ideal.
Okay, that answers,
Thank you.
I think that answers that question,
Okay.
for me anyway.
Well, I read Mrs. McCall's attorney's letter, and that's one of the reasons I asked that. And there were a lot of issues raised there, which I'm sure Ralph could address every single one of them. But the one that got me was that we didn't have anything specific in our land use ordinance on expansion of use, of the same use, basically, and there isn't much in the case literature, but I have a very hard time and, understanding how you could possibly allow the expansion of a structure without allowing the expansion of a use. It doesn't make sense in the land use ordinance to me. If you basically said that you couldn't expand a residential use when you replaced the house and increase volume, then the whole of the LUO 83B 1 would be negated. And that allows for a footprint of a house to be reconfigured, of the existing area, basically. And here you're reducing it, but the volume is an expansion of use, but it's an expansion of residential use. So I just wanted to say that I don't have a problem, I don't buy that argument.
And just so you know, a similar argument was made a number of, well, not a number.
Well, there was something in Frost v. Lucy.
Well, this was actually before this board back in 2007 on Skipper Joe's Point. I don't know if anyone here was on the board then.
No.
I know Warner's familiar with it, but it was what we call the Nardi case. Charles Nardi was in a butter to actually my clients, Montagnier and LaRose, who wanted to move a house, and it was back then it was in the critical edge zone, which you no longer have, but it's similar to the resource protection. And the argument was made by Mr. Nardi's attorneys, the same law firm that represents Mrs. McCall, that you can move the structure, but you couldn't move the use to that structure. And this board disagreed with that and ruled that you could make that change. It went to Superior Court. The Superior Court agreed with the board that that was correct. It went to the state Supreme Court, who upheld the Superior Court. So there actually is case law that when you move the structure, the use moves with it.
And that's Skipper Joe's Point?
Yeah, but it's Nardi versus Town of Kennebunkport. Actually, I sent Warner the case decision this morning.
Okay. All right. And the other thing I wanted to say,
I can make that available to the board. if
I
you all
I would
want.
like to see that.
If you all want that.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because I always, every time I look at the non-conformance regs, I have to go back and look at all the case law. The other argument that was made that the architectural style isn't the same, I went down Langsford Road the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact, and I saw several houses that were very much aligned to that architectural style, even some older ones. So,
We brought pictures as well of houses that are located.
yes, exactly, exactly. I mean,
Several we've
you're
designed, and they're all-
not doing California contemporary, you're not doing a Hobbit house, you're not doing,
No, it's a cottage-style house on a cottage-style,
Yeah.
cottage-style neighborhood for the most
yeah,
part.
so I don't buy that argument either. And obviously, Maine statutes allow for 30% expansion and replacement. So I just wanted to say that I have read that letter and I've studied it. But I can't go along with those arguments.
Okay. Ed, have any more questions for Eric at this point?
No, but I would like to comment on the letter that we got from the McCall's lawyer, if this would be an appropriate time.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I was concerned that the letter was as lengthy as it was. I think it's important that the board does study it. I know I spent the better part of a day with it, and I think it's important that we say that on the record. We don't take this is a very substantial investment that the McCalls have made, to have someone study it for them and to put it in writing, and so we don't take it lightly. So I'd like to at least just talk to the 4 points that the letter makes, and then amplifies throughout the rest of the, I think it's a 16-page document. And I think Nina and Tom have hit on them, but just to go through them point by point. The first one is that you didn't show us, and we didn't discuss clearly how this was less non-conforming. I think it was stated, but then the discussion we just have, I think, amplified why there was still a concern that needed to be brought out, that a part of the house was closer to the ocean than it was before. Why did we do that? Why didn't you move? Why was this the best practical approach, and why is it net less non-conforming? So I think what we've said is that the area-wise, it is moved away, that the area that has been moved away from the ocean is twice the area of the part of the house that's moved closer, and the part that's moved closer is not anywhere near the closest approach that you had before, that you haven't moved the house closer to the McCalls, in part because it was practical to try to use the existing sewer. So I think we've talked about that now, but I think it was important to get that on the record. The second point that the letter makes is that the application doesn't meet your burden of proof that the project satisfies the detailed standards. And I think that our opinion here, my opinion is that whether it was included point by point in the application, that's not required. I think you have to explain to the board and answer the questions of the board and help the board meet its requirement to go over point by point the requirements of the land use ordinance. And my opinion is that you've done that. So I don't think that's a reason for denial right now. I think you have met the burden of proof to us.
And if I think one of the key points that the attorney made in that regard was about vegetation. And I think at the last
We
meeting,
talked
Eric
about that.
explained
Right.
about what would be revegetated.
So I think that's a perfect example, that you didn't make that argument in the written application, but in the course of the discussion, questions were raised and they were answered satisfactorily. So that's an excellent example. I think there are other examples that we could draw on. So I'm happy with point 2 as well. I don't think it's a reason for denial. Item 3, it says that well, that's the neighborhood issue. And I think I would ask the board, I mean, I've been down Langsford Road and looked at it. I have personal knowledge. It didn't bother me that you didn't have pictures in your written application. I had personal knowledge of the environment, and I thought that the detailed drawings that you gave of the architecture satisfied me that it was in keeping with the neighborhood. I think if I polled the board, I'd find that everybody has, at one time or another, been down Langsford Road, and we
Yeah, those pictures if anyone's interested.
appreciate that. Yeah, so I think that, again, is not a reason for denial. And the fourth one then was the issue that Nina just brought up about use. And I thought it was telling that the letter did not include the definition of use from the land use ordinance. It talked about a use as if it were something materially substantive, like the structure or the lot. And the definition clearly says that it's the purpose. The use is the purpose. And we talk about in the land use ordinance the expansion of a non-conforming use in section 8.8, and it says expansions are prohibited, right? But you're not even asking us to change anything to do with the use. The use of that lot is a single-family residential, and that's being maintained. You are permitted to expand it, and 8.8 says that you can't expand the use except that non-conforming residential uses, which this is, may, after obtaining permission from the planning board, be expanded within existing residential structures or within expansion of such structures as allowed by 8.3b1. And I think that's exactly what is going on here. So I think, again, that point wasn't compelling in terms of request to denial. So I just wanted to go on the record to say, we looked at it hard, and I, for one, don't find this a compelling reason to deny.
Okay,
That's all I had.
all right. Scott, anything?
All set.
Larry, yours?
Well, I appreciate that discussion, Ed.
Yes, and
so-
you'll figure out how to get it all into a
Oh,
finding
I
of
got
facts.
some notes here. Yeah. So I just had some rather more detailed things, okay? So you're going to include provisions to minimize bird strikes, right? Screens, something like that?
That's correct, we discussed that.
Yep, just want to double check. And is there a final alignment or some commitment from the owner about limiting the use of chemicals like pesticides and/or fertilizers? What's the deal on that?
That last time, Mr. Nolan responded that he didn't have any desire to use pesticides or fertilizers
Okay, I'm going to put that in the finding of facts.
because the grass didn't grow also well there as it was because of salt water.
Just double checking.
Right, is that?
You're gonna see it again.
Yeah.
You're going to see it again, okay. So then, finally, don't you need a permit by rule from the DEP for this? I mean, you
Yeah,
probably,
we've already filed a permit.
oh, you filed, okay, so I'll say you started that, okay. And then I guess the last thing is your comments about the erosion control are just words in your application.
For best
Is that-
practices.
Yeah, is that sufficient for us, or do we want to get drawings? I mean, it seemed okay to me.
I'm okay with it.
You can do a mulch barrier or big hay bales or.
It didn't look like a particularly challenging
No, it didn't look
lot from that
challenging.
regard.
There's
It's
already a
flat.
seawall there too, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, okay, so I'm okay with it if we can agree, okay.
And
So-
those are typical items that we look for, that we look to be identified as well whenever we do, a project such as this. So any contractor that's doing earth disturbance work, within the shoreline zone has to be certified in erosion control practices through the state to begin with.
Okay,
And so that's again, it's a standard thing that those folks are used to providing.
all right. So that's it, thank you.
Can I, You jogged my memory. You put out a draft of the findings.
I did, yes.
I worry about us putting as a condition
Uh-huh.
in the findings. I think in the findings, we should say that we had this discussion and that the applicant and the owner agreed that they were going to limit the use of fertilizers and that they were going to incorporate bird control measures to the degree possible. But I worry about putting it in as a condition and about I don't want to put in toothless conditions.
We've had discussions about this before. We do have the ability to do that under 1010A and 1010B.
I worry that we don't have a way of enforcing them.
Yeah, enforcement's an issue, yeah.
And
I think in one of the other applications we had, it was put in as a recommendation.
I'm very comfortable with that,
Yeah.
and a documentation that there was an agreement struck even.
Yeah,
But I personally would be concerned about putting it in as a condition, knowing that there's not going to be an enforcement of that.
yeah. Okay, well, we can put that in as a comment and a recommendation.
Yeah, we've done that in the
Yeah.
past, so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Larry.
All right.
Okay, I'm done.
You're done.
I think you satisfied the questions we had, and also the additional questions were raised, but it does say that the application provides no indication of the height of the existing structure, thereby preventing the board from accurately comparing the height of the existing with the proposed 28.8. Do you happen to know how high the current house is? And I don't think that it really applies.
That question
The last time, and I think you said 26 feet
I
thereabouts.
believe that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then you did have the height of the new structure.
Yeah, and from the architectural comparisons, it really doesn't look that much different, but if you put that on the application, the height of the existing house, just to satisfy that question if it ever came up?
We could do that, sure.
Thanks.
That I did.
But the new house is 29 feet, 8 inches. I think.
28.8.
That's right.
28,
28.
29 feet, 8 inches.
29 feet,
29.
8 inches, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So it's just right there.
We can do that.
You all
That's
set,
it,
George?
yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will open the public hearing unless you guys have anything else to say. So, do I have any members of the public who would like to speak? Please, identify yourself.
Yes, my name is Stephen McCall. I'm here in my capacity unofficially representing my mother. She finds it easier if I handle this sort of thing, so
Sure.
that's okay by the board.
Absolutely.
Obviously, most of our points were raised in the letter from the attorney. And I want to thank the board for going over that. It's really good to hear that you spent a lot of time with that. Not that we expected different, but it's good to hear it out loud. There are a couple of things that I wanted to address. One was the matter of the setbacks. Okay. Where the existing, or excuse me, where the proposed structure is moved away from the 90-foot mark to the north there, or I guess it's actually to the northeast there. Just wanted to mention that that entire border and in front of the other abutter there, the Butners, is actually a large hedgerow. I don't know if that makes any difference, but moving away from that essentially structure of plant doesn't really make much of a difference, in my opinion, to what's going on that side. It's still a large hedgerow a few feet away from the house. The other point I wanted to address is parking. As you can see from the current structure, there's a dedicated parking area in front of the house. The proposed house does away with that and leaves the entirety of the parking on the existing, what's labeled the existing driveway on the plan. Now that existing driveway is just about one car width wide. Now, that's going to leave the owners of the proposed house parking in an area that was really intended as an access way, and walking down the property of two of the abutters, ourselves, McCall's, and Napolitano's, to actually access the house, which I would consider to be a non-ideal situation. It's not a big thing, but where there is some space there, and as Mr. Peterson noted, they're reducing the hardscape significantly. I don't really see why that couldn't, that aspect of the daily life of the residents couldn't be rolled into the plan so that there is some sort of parking area or at least a way to get from the cars to the house without actually going over the abutters land. I think other than that, everything has been addressed thanks to the letter. So, unless there are any questions for me, I think that's it for me.
I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
You're saying there is no parking area beyond the driveway itself?
Not in the proposed house. In the current setup, there's a small parking area that can accommodate 3 cars. 2 pull straight forward and 1 pulls to the side.
But here you'd have to drive across this proposed walkway to do that, to get to that area? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the walkway replaces, the walkway is part of what replaces the current existing parking area.
All right.
So the walkway, though, is on the owner's property.
Right, so I was getting to that. So you said you thought this new setup would cause people to walk on the abutter's property where they don't now.
Correct.
And why is that? Where would that be?
So if you imagine 2 cars parked in what's labeled existing driveway.
Yeah, they'd have to be right over against the side and then you could walk by them. But they can't pass each other, right?
Right, no.
Someone's got to move the
I'm
car.
talking parked one in front of the other.
Okay.
Because that's the only way you'd be able to park on that driveway is one in front of the other down the length of the driveway.
Yeah.
Because of that, of the narrowness of that driveway, there's really no room to get out and move to the structure without moving the budding land, over the budding land. The
11 feet is plenty of width.
Currently, the parking area allows you to drive down what's labeled existing driveway without actually parking there. I mean, obviously, if somebody's having a party or something, it's not going to bother us that, the whole driveway is being used, if that was something that someone wanted to do. But this setup is making it so that daily people would be parking and then walking over abutting land in order to get out of their car and get to the house.
So you've never gone in a parking space that's less than 11 feet wide? Because parking spaces in this town have to be 10 feet wide, and that's wide, so I
haven't measured, right?
Okay, but I mean, 11 feet is a good 1.5 or 2, at least 2 or 3 feet on each side of the car.
Fair enough.
So there's plenty of room if they park in the middle.
All right, well, that was all I had.
Okay? Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, please come up, identify.
Hi, my name's Rita McCall. I own the house that you're talking about.
Yes.
It's the abutter. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned is that the end of my property, they want to move the house back so that, like he said, there'd be no room to park the cars at all, except in the driveway between my house, my land, and the land next to us. So that would be blocking us all the time. There'd be cars always parked there, all right? You look like you don't understand. what
I
I'm
don't
talking
understand
about.
how it would block you.
The view. But it's not a view, that would be back from the ocean.
No, apparently you don't have the same, plans.
It's right there.
No, but that's,
Take this one if you wish, but.
okay, all right, my backyard, the back of my house, is quite small, and they're planning on moving the house back so that there'll be no room for the parking, like I said, and the house will be like right there, blocking my view. It's also going to be over so that I can't, when I'm outside and I'm in my yard, I won't be able to see the ocean anymore. Okay? Not in my backyard, because their building is going to be completely blocking the view that I have now. They're going to use the square footage of the, excuse me, I've had the flu and
It's fine.
I didn't really want to come tonight, but it felt like I needed to, so pardon me, I'm trying my best. The porch that's there now is open. It's not a porch, it's a deck, okay? And that's open, so you can see out, into the water, see the lighthouse, and see boats coming and going and everything. And what they want to do is they're going to use that footage to build their house. So it will be blocking that whole view. I'll have no view from my backyard anymore when I'm down on my backyard. When I get up into my porch, most of the view is going to be blocked by the house. Most of the view that I have now. I'll only have a view out my side windows going this way. I won't have the view out my porch anymore, because they're using that square footage and they're going to be blocking it. All right, it's not going to be open square footage anymore. It's going to be closed in. All right?
It's not really an issue with the cars, is it?
No, it's more.
And the driveway?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's not,
It's like
That's not great.
the cars used to be between you and the ocean, where they parked before, but now they're gonna
No.
park on the driveway?
cars used to be in back of the house. Parking in back of the house.
Point on that drawing, would you, where the cars used to be?
Can you show?
It's roughly where the walkway and steps are right now.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Can you show?
You can see that.
Yeah, you do it because,
So I'm just trying to orient myself here. Okay, so the current parking area is roughly in this location.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not down where the deck was, yeah, okay.
no,
So the concern you have is that the 30% expansion is now house instead of deck, and
Right.
and you can't see through it.
no,
Yeah.
no. And like I said, from my yard, I'll have no view. You know, back, I won't be able to see the lighthouse anymore from my yard. I won't be able to see, you know, the boats coming and going. I'll have no view at all. I'll just be able to see the marsh with the big weeds from the back, from my yard. My porch, I'll be able to see only the light, part of the lighthouse and over to the right of my land, which is the marsh and, you know, the islands over there. My bedroom, which is my second floor, used to have like a nice view.
Yeah.
But because they're making the house higher from my bedroom, I won't be able to see. I won't have a view at all. Not at all. Okay? That's what the big issue is.
I have to say, that didn't come through in the letter.
Probably not.
Yeah, all right. I'm not sure that it's within our purview to do anything about it, but it is the issue that needs, you know, to be expressed.
Well, they're not staying with the usage of the land. Our part of Langsford Road has different, no, if you look it up, zoning, the
Yes.
zoning for our part of Langsford Road, which is down almost to the end of the road
Yep,
and close to the water,
right.
it's very different from what you were talking about. That big house that's up, a couple of doors up, they're way back from the ocean. They're in a completely different zoning area.
These houses, yours included, would not be able to be built today.
No,
Yeah, no, I understand that.
No.
It is resource protection, so that use would be precluded
right,
today.
right.
Having said that, though, it is a residential, single-family residence today. That's the use of the lot, and they're not changing that.
They are changing the
structure itself,
structure, the
Right.
size.
right?
It's not supposed to, they're not supposed to be able to do that.
Actually, they can change it under
code.
main law to
30
increase the volume to 30% if they haven't increased it before.
So it doesn't matter that, that on our part of the road, that there is a different,
A different zone.
a different.
No, it does matter. I'm just saying that the ordinance says in that zone, even though it's what they call a non-conforming use and structure and lot, for that matter, it can still, one time, be increased in volume or in area by 30%. And that was how the law was written. So that's what people are
If
doing.
the structure is removed. You have to remove the structure and rebuild a new one. You can't just modify an
No,
existing
you
home.
can, you
You
can
can
modify it.
You can modify as
You can
well?
modify it.
I've learned something
Yeah.
new, thank you.
Yeah.
It's the increase, whether you're adding to the structure or whether you're replacing the structure.
Thank you for that.
So it doesn't matter that we're in a
No.
different zone?
No.
Well, it matters,
You're all
but you
Cape
can't go more
Porpoise
than
zone.
30%.
Cape Porpoise West, right,
That's why
CPW?
we're here, is because we're in that zone, and not just
Yes,
voting.
we wouldn't even be visiting this if it wasn't in that zone. And that's why they can't do 35%, or more, but it is allowed.
So even though you had to stay within certain area and everything before, now that's just thrown away, and they can just change it?
No, there are certain rules and regulations that go along with that 30%. They couldn't move the house closer to the ocean, for example. They can't move it overall closer to the ocean. That would make it more non-conforming. They can't move it closer to property setbacks. That would make it more non-conforming. And, there's a limit to what they can do. What they have done with this house is basically rearrange it, increase it to 30%, but try to make it the most non-conforming that they could make it.
Least.
In other words, try to keep it as far from the ocean in reconfiguration and as far from setbacks as they can in basically reconfiguring the structure and the footprint of the house. The only way we could look at your view, and it's more of an enforcement issue, I think it might be, is if in the deed of this particular house, there were a view easement that didn't allow them to construct to block your view, but there isn't in their deed. In their deed. A lot of times when lots are divided, and one has more of a view and the other one's behind it, the owner might put on a view easement so that you cannot block somebody's view if you reconstruct the house or do other structures to it. But that is not the case here in that deed.
Okay. They're going by what he's saying about the house and the lot. I've been there 25 years. I've lived there 25 years. And I got the house from my Aunt Rose, who got it from the original owner of that whole section. Where my house is, where his house is, the house to the left, if you're looking at the ocean, of his, and the house right beside mine with the driveway in between, the Napolitano's house. The lady, Lucy Lord, owned that entire section, and she sold my lot to my Aunt Rose, all right? And she still owned the house in front. She offered my aunt either that house in front, where he has now, or the lot that she could build a new house on, and she decided that she would build the new house. Okay, so that's the original area. It all belonged to the one person, all right? And it was divided up, okay? This man bought the house from friends of mine that used to live in the house in front. But I've been there, or my aunt has been there the entire time. And I don't see why he is allowed all of a sudden to come in and build this big house that's going to block my view. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. And the people who lived there before and stuff, they weren't allowed to do any of this stuff, any of the making the house bigger or blocking other people's views and stuff.
Ms. McCall, I think from our, limited vantage point here, we only have certain things we can rule on, but they were allowed. They may not have opted to do it, but the law hasn't changed in the last couple of years here. This is like since the 70s when the land use ordinance went into effect, the 30% expansion allowances has been incorporated into that law. And I think it was because of people, saying, hey, I want to be able to not be restricted. Unfortunately, this is, going to affect you. And the only other thing I know of to do is to ask the architect, is there anything that comes out of this that jumps to mind that says, gosh, I should have done something different, or this is just a fact?
Is that we only did an 11% expansion on square footage? Could have been more.
Could have been worse. There's no imaginative thought comes to mind here, listening to this fact that, it could improve her view. I can't think of any, but.
The portion of the house that goes over where the deck used to be
Like,
is one story also.
So from the bedroom, you will be able to look over it, but not from the yard. Yeah.
So now,
Well, and also,
Go to the mic, please.
Eric, come to the mic.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right, that there's no, to my knowledge, that there's no view easement over this property, and it's the front row property. So they're following all the rules and regulations to allow them to avail themselves of the 30% expansion. I mean, Ms. McCall's house is directly behind this. There's probably somebody across the street that could also say that their view was compromised, and it goes on and on.
Oh, absolutely, I understand.
Ralph, do you have any words of wisdom to add to this?
This isn't the first time you've been through this, I know.
No, I really don't have anything to add. There is no if there was a view easement, then that would dramatically alter what we could do. But there is no view easement. There's still going to be, from places, a view of the ocean as I look at that. It's just not what it was. I understand.
She's got this landmark that,
The other aspect, if you looked at the old plan, this has moved back quite a bit from the old plan, is it not?
The first plan?
Yes.
Sure has. Yeah.
So there's a lot more viewing easement now than there was.
That's correct. That's why we went back to the drawing board and tailored this back from the first application.
Well, and I think the other thing is that the area closest to the stone wall down there to the southwest is, like you said, one story, and it looks like there's just a deck there.
That's right. We tried
So
to keep
that-
that as tight as possible.
So that seems to me as a advantage for providing as much view as possible.
It's a kind gesture to the neighbor.
Kind gesture to the neighbor, yeah. So that's good. Okay.
Our job on the board is not to write law, but to simply enforce code and regulation, which is why we took so much time with this. And it breaks my heart to hear that. There's nothing we can do about that. We can only follow the law and make sure it's enforced.
Yeah.
So it can't be any bigger than 30%.
Well, 30% expansion on volume and area, but in this case, the area is only increased by 11%.
That's right.
So it could be even bigger.
That's right.
no, I think, the point is, we've done what we can, and I think
Yeah.
the applicant has worked with us to do more than they had to, but unfortunately, it still has an effect on the abutters, and something that has been a benefit that they've had for some 25 years is going to be affected by this, and that's unfortunate. Thank you.
Okay. So any more comments from public? Do we have any hands raised on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
By the way, how many people do we have on
We
Zoom?
have 12 attendees.
12 attendees, all right. So, I guess we have nothing further to do.
Close the public meeting.
Close.
I have to close the public hearing, yeah. So I'm going to close the public hearing at this point, and any last comments from the board, or are we ready to rule? I'm not hearing any comments, so I will hear a motion. Then,
Move to approve the application?
I second it.
okay, so Ed,
Approve.
Tina,
Approve.
Tom approves?
Approved.
Approve.
Okay, so it is approved. We'll have a finding of facts next time.
Yep.
And you have a lot of new, good facts from
Yeah.
today's meeting.
I got a lot
so-
more info, yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be read at our next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Probably at the end of our next meeting, if it's just reading a finding of facts, but,
Yeah.
You may not see me, yeah, okay, thank you.
okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. So that brings us to 220904 Hidden Pond. Stephen Doe, the agent, and obviously Mr. Austin again for his. So our first steps will be whatever, well, I mean, if you want to present just again, but the basic idea is to open portion of the hidden pond all year round.
Yep, thank you. My name's Steve Doe from Sebago Technics. Also with me is Ralph Austin and Justin Grimes. Last time we were here, there was a few items the board had asked for, and then Ralph put 2 memos together to address those. And then
Yep.
we also received a letter from the fire chief describing what he'd be looking for fire protection out there.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add, and we can go through the memos, but if you have them, I can answer any questions.
Well, we've received some letters from abutters, and I wanted to address those a little bit. We haven't decided on basically how many events would be allowed in the winter, and there was apparently at least one police report of noise. And I still think in winter, that sound would carry an awful lot, more than it would in summer. Although maybe in winter you get fewer people at events, I don't know. But because of that, I don't think that your wish list, as you put it, should be granted to the extent that you've asked for it. And I really don't think you should be having outdoor events in the winter. I'm gonna say that. And if there were an increase in events, during that period of time, I'd recommend to the board maybe it be 10 at the very most, and no outdoor events. Something else came up, though, in those letters, in that one of the abutters said that smoke from the fire pits actually reached her house. I've spoken with Werner about that and asked about the fire pits, and he's explained to me that there are 2 there, 2 fire pits, and obviously they're outdoor. I don't know whether smoke would travel that far. I know that when I'm near a fire, the smoke always goes toward me, but my recommendation is that because you have abutters around, and it gets noisy around fire pits, but more so because you have abutters around and because you're in a forested area, I would recommend very strongly that you convert those fire pits to propane. There would be less fire danger that way. It's just a recommendation from me. I don't know how the other board members feel about it, but we're getting more and more pollution in town from smoke from fires and various fire pits. Everybody seems to want to have one. So it is just a recommendation. I'll put it out to you.
Yeah, the fire pit, there's two fire pits. One is at the Earth Restaurant.
Mhm.
That one's already been approved, and they've had that fire pit since they opened up. The other one is at the lodge. I don't know if you're familiar with the lodge is. I can actually show you on the drawing for that.
Okay.
So this is the overall plan of the whole complex. Moose Rocks Road is down here. So this is the main entrance that brings you in, and then the road takes you off, and then Earth is located here.
Right.
So there's a fire pit over here by Earth. The other one, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, is at the lodge, so it's in the back of the lodge over here. So, you know, those, you know, the butters, I believe, were over here that were concerned about it. You know, that's a long distance. Same with this one, it's a long distance.
It is, but I'm just recommending because you're in a very forested area, and because, you know, I hear people all the time talking about fire pits and pollution and the air pollution around here now because of the increase in population and the increase in tourist numbers, that it might be a good thing to convert them to propane. I don't feel like we should make that a condition.
No.
I'm just making a recommendation on my own. As to the events, I think you have quite a few events during the high tourist season, if we'll put it, as my husband puts it, as high tide of tourists. So that's an awful lot, is 30 events and so forth. And I think, you know, during the winter, you could limit that a little more. It's supposed to be the quiet season, and you're in a conditional use. And my recommendation to the board, I don't know how others feel about it, is limit you to 10 events maybe in the winter, and no outdoor events.
I think part of the experience of Maine in winter is being outside and getting people outside. I just want to throw that out.
There may be no outside amplified music.
That might be, yeah. No parties, maybe hikes are fine.
Kind of what suggested for outdoor events. We were talking about not having outdoor, amplified music outdoors
During the winter.
during the winter.
I mean, just in addition to the noise ordinance, is that fair? Just at all times.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is a request to not have amplified music outdoors during the course of the winter.
Well, no outdoor parties either. And it's not just music, it's sound of people getting drunk. You know, hikes, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, those are events that,
I only just caution a little bit of that because it gets a bit tricky in terms of an enforcement mechanism.
yes, it does, it does.
And as, you know, as the fellow who helps the crew that gets the calls, you know, to define what is you know, what's a party, what isn't a party, you know, I mean, I've seen drunk, you know, snowshoers too, so. You know, I mean, it's.
But they're usually flat on their face.
For a while.
I'm just suggesting some things, and I'm going to open it up to the board, because that's all I have right now, and let other people give their opinions, see what they think.
Okay. Ed? What do you got?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, let me start with the different thing. In the application, you listed some number, it might even be 10, prior approvals that the planning board has given. Why'd you include that, and to what degree is that germane to the current situation?
The approvals were required to provide that as part of the application process.
Any time you've ever been before the planning board has to be in the
You
application?
have to provide the prior approvals in the application.
So can you just briefly talk about what those were?
No matter
I
what
was-
they are, you're saying they have to be.
They have to, you have to
I didn't
provide
know
all the
that.
prior approvals.
No, I didn't either.
Plans.
I thought
Yeah,
Steve
typically
Steve
what-
is very thoughtful. Why is he putting this stuff in here?
It's a requirement of the ordinance. I mean, I suppose we could ask for a waiver, but
No, I understand.
we have them all in
Be
there.
careful what you wish for, right? This is one of those.
I mean, we can run through that. I don't know if you want a history of all of them.
I just I wanted you to make me, to put my mind at rest that this wasn't a continuing saga, right?
No.
I'm doing this on the heels of getting abutters letters that say, these guys used to be bad. And then I see, oh, and they've been to the planning board a lot.
It's an ongoing, it's an ongoing resort.
Okay.
And other hospitality properties in the town come before you
Yep.
for changes.
Okay.
That's all this is. As the industry changes, as the tourist season changes, as the nature of tourism
Yes.
changes,
And the business evolves.
the business evolves. I mean, we were here a couple of years ago for winterization of the herb.
That I recall.
Right.
Right. And then it's just that I hadn't carefully read that section of the application, and then I thought there was a couple of times, and we talked about those, and come to find out, it's,
Yeah, I've
probably
been
have to
here a
see
few
you
more than
again
that.
at some point.
I think if.
No more than that, though. It's
delved
just
into,
to,
other resort properties, you find that they've been here a number of times as
no,
well.
we've seen it on Anthem a number of times, and, yes, no, I understand. Okay.
Obviously, the colony just had a major change.
Yeah.
Ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will see them again for the other side of the campus.
That's true.
Right, so, no, you're right. Okay, that was my question. Now I want to get back to what Nina was talking about. I guess I want to throw out there that I'm not sure that I agree that the winter is supposed to be the quiet season. I don't, that, you said that was said sort of as a given, but I don't know that that's true. I, for one, I have a hard time saying to the business, okay, you were open for seasonal use, and that made sense for the business at that point in time. You want to open the business for longer. The neighborhood's not changing, the location isn't changing. Why isn't the current, what's the right word, density is not quite the right word, frequency of events, which the neighborhood has come to understand, why isn't that something that's reasonable going forward? I know the speculation that it might be easier to hear what's going on there in the wintertime, but I don't know that there's an expectation of a noise-free, quiet season in that zone. So I guess I'm not of a mind to say we should clamp down on this because it's the winter. And I think we need to be careful that there are neighbors, and I know maybe they're not as close as we run into on Cape Porpoise, but they are where they are, and their concerns are legitimate, and they need to be protected. Their quality of life is important. But I think that needs to be done with constraints on noise, and not on, I'm sorry, you can't do as much business in the wintertime. I think that feels like an overreach of the planning board to me. That's all I had.
George, do you have anything?
No.
Ed? Owen?
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts. First, I liked Nina's suggestion that the fire pits be converted to propane. It does sound like an improvement in fire safety as well as a reduction in impact on abutters. And then,
And they can be turned off when it's time to, it's 11 o'clock, we're all going to bed, sorry, guys.
I know 1947 seems like in ancient history, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
it really wasn't that long ago.
yeah, so the improvement in fire safety is very attractive for me. And then the second thought I had was I did see where there was concerns from abutters about noise that they had experienced. So my thought was when Hidden Pond holds and event outside, did you want to erect some temporary sound barriers between, well, to separate the event from the butters to the south? And of course, last week you mentioned the only effective way to do that is with some kind of blankets on the fence or something. But that might,
Yeah,
that,
the events are behind the barn, so the barn.
yeah, but the sound diffracts around there, okay? I mean, it will diffract around the obstacle and continue to propagate. So the fact that there was at least one noise complaint, and then there were letters from abutters commenting on the noise that they had heard. If you perhaps provided some sound, temporary, on a per-use basis, sound fencing, if you will, to confine the sound to the area so that there's a greater, improve the likelihood that it stayed behind the barn, if you will.
How you do that, because my knowledge of sound fences have to be in the ground, physically in the ground, and then, a certain height.
Yeah.
Be a solid board fence. That is not something that's kind of a
Well,
temporary.
there's temporary blankets that you could drape over one of those, those construction fences. I mean, you could erect them on a per event basis, it seems. I mean, it might be worth looking into in order to reduce the impact on the butters, that's all I'm saying. And then the other question I had was, I thought there was no amplified music.
That's what we thought too, but then when we actually read the conditions, you are allowed to have amplified music up until 9
Oh,
outside, and then you can move it to the inside. And that was actually one of the conditions. I kept thinking it wasn't amplified, but it is allowed.
okay.
No, it does, there's still an 11 PM?
There's
Is
a
it?
9 PM shut off for outside,
Yes,
and then 11,
So,
11 PM.
yeah, it's 9 for outside amplified, 10 for music, and then 11 for the event itself.
Event closes.
okay.
So at 10 o'clock, you shut off the music completely.
Inside of it.
And the fire pits too?
Excuse me?
And the fire pits too?
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. I was
Yeah,
the
the
case.
fire pits aren't, sorry. The fire pits aren't associated with the events. So the fire pits are associated with the restaurant and the resort itself. So that's, just to note that as it's not.
So they can be going every night of the week.
Correct, the fire pits.
Are they
They currently do.
are they time constrained also?
Come again?
Time constrained also? I know when we approved, whatever they're calling it now.
AWOL. That was the case manager.
Hmm?
The AWOL Inn.
Oh, AWOL, yes. When we approved their stuff, they had somebody, they were propane, but somebody went out, made sure, an employee made sure they were turned off.
And they were off by 10 also.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use fire pits, propane version at times, but we have 2 kind of permanent stone, enclosures for a wood burning fire outside, in addition to the indoor fire places.
And that's, just so we're clear, that fire pit is part of, the one fire pit is part of Earth, which you've already approved that being open all year round.
Yes.
And it's not in front of the board tonight. This is for the cottages to be winterized.
Right.
Well, we're already here.
Yeah, we haven't put any limits on you yet. I mean, geez, Right, 10 more, right?
I think one of the problems we're having is that we don't have any really good information on the sound traveling through the woods there to the abutters. We have no measurements, and I still feel that in winter, because if there's snow on the ground, that sound's going to travel a lot further and a lot easier.
No leaves on the
And-
trees.
Yeah,
The
I
smells in the
just,
trees, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have an answer to that because we're not sound experts. I mean.
and we don't have an answer.
Indicated that leaves on the tree or not leaves on the tree really does not impact.
Does not impact, but sound travels over water really fast. I can tell you that, living next to a river. And it travels very well, the screaming especially.
Well,
And
we are concerned about, the neighbors, But please understand that you've received 3 letters, and for 3 years, well, don't count 1 year, for 2 years, there was 1 police report.
Okay,
So
and,
it's
and
not
I
major.
recognize that. I recognize that, and it's good, but you are a conditional use. Okay. And sometimes you have to put limitations on a conditional use, just to get ahead of preventing any problems. So with snow on the ground, with water on the ground, my feeling is that sound travels faster. I don't know that, though. We have no sound engineers sitting at the abutter's house, listening. We have nothing that tells us exactly what's going on. And that's why I feel that starting with some limitations, during the winter might help. And then seeing what happens for a year or so. You can always come back to the board and ask to lift those limitations.
Do we have a sound ordinance in the town already, though?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. 10 o'clock.
And that, you're not asking for a waiver on that,
No.
right?
No.
Does that, to me, that probably has decibel levels, that
I don't think it's different in the winter or and the summer, right?
Correct.
I think it's just the
We
one.
have a sound ordinance, but remember, this is a conditional use and it's in a residential area.
Yeah.
I don't, all I'm saying is that it has a sound ordinance. They're, with the exception of a complaint, they appear to be meeting that sound ordinance. I don't think they've said they want a waiver on the sound ordinance for the winter. I don't think we should speculate that they will need a waiver, and therefore we're going to crack down in advance. If there is a problem, then I think it'll need to be dealt with.
Ralph offered and Justin agreed that, when they have events, say you grant someone during the winter, that they will do sound readings at the property line
On a couple of
events, just to kind of get a baseline reading,
Super.
Yeah, that'd be
report
good.
back to Warner on that.
That would be
I
good.
like
That
that.
would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be good. And
And that'll help us beyond this
Exactly.
Yeah, in the future.
discussion.
Yeah.
For the next time.
so I did look into this a little bit. I know that there's some specifications, some limits in the land use ordinance about sound levels, but the state of Maine also has some constraints, which I think are more stringent than what's in the land use ordinance. So you may want to take a look at the state of Maine sound limits, decibels.
Well, so I would just caution the board in terms of going beyond what's outside of the land use ordinance. I mean, you're charged specifically with enforcing, we're looking at specifications within the land use ordinance. I don't typically go beyond, looking for anything, and I'd want to know what the applicability of that standard is, for what specific application. I'm not aware of something that applies to the state, in its entirety, for something like this. There may be OSHA requirements as it relates to, specific occupational circumstances, but I'm not aware of a statewide sound level, restriction.
Well, I just found one on a quick Google search and it just popped up. I mean, it's almost the same, but it's slightly more stringent. That's all.
Well, if it's borderline, there's probably going to be a problem, already.
Yeah.
We'll probably get a lot more.
I know what happens now. Larry, you don't live far from me, and you know that once in a while, one of the properties that are down on South Main Street will have an event, and when that's happening, it's not that it's marginally over some sound limit.
Yeah.
It's going crazy.
Yeah.
If that's what's going on, we're not going to legislate that away. That's an enforcement issue.
Yeah.
With the police involved.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about here is just getting a gauge on, realistically, what are we talking about? Is it something that's within the limits? Is it something that's way outside? And I think that would be very helpful.
It'd be very helpful to define what the situation is, yeah.
Okay. Scott, you have anything more? Okay, so the the one question I think before us is the number of events. Now,
Yeah.
you requested 20, I believe?
And 4 outside.
Right. And,
And my recommendation is for right now, keep it at 10 and no outside and see how it goes. And then you could come back, if there are no complaints, I think you could come back and ask to increase that.
I think part of the winter experience is heading out to events. And I think with the monitoring of them, the sound levels, if that becomes an issue, they're gonna be reporting, to Warner if it exceeds the ordinance.
What would you think about a condition that said you will monitor the 4 events that you have, this coming, the first 4 events, and report back, and if there's a problem, then you're going to have to come back. You're going to lose the privilege.
Sounds reasonable.
Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
I like the way that the loop kind of closes on.
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
Okay, and the total number still 20, or, I know you don't want it to be any, but that's.
That's every weekend. That's every weekend.
How many is it for this? This is,
Why don't
we're
we
doubling the season,
open the
right?
public hearing and see if
Are you
there
doubling the number of
others.
events?
Yeah.
Chime in on that.
You're having a reduced number because you think maybe the trade won't support it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and even if you're approved for 20, there's no guarantee there's actually going to be 20.
Right.
Approved for 30 and they don't do 30.
Not to exceed.
Right, not to exceed, yeah.
I'm okay with the 20.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
well.
If there are no more questions, I think we want to open it up for public hearing. Again, this is a continuation of the public hearing from last time. And anyone here interested? Okay, any hands raised?
Yes, we have Joe Novak.
Okay, would you bring them in, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks very much. I appreciate you taking some time out to hear from my wife, Carrie, and myself. We own the house 358 Goose Rocks that is adjacent to the primary drive into Hidden Pond. We've been living here for a couple of years now and have been good neighbors. I'd like to start by saying that both Carrie and I enjoy being neighbors to Hidden Pond and often walk the roads with our dogs during the year and have thoroughly enjoyed being here. So no problems with Hidden Pond whatsoever. I think something that has not been necessarily brought up here at the meeting so far is we've talked about the frequency of use of visitors coming in and out. But what we experience in being right across the street from the primary maintenance shop for Hidden Pond is the expanded frequency of staff moving up and down the street and the added congestion and everything else that's going on across the street that we deal with, during the summertime with the golf carts and the staff, just interactions for the most part. I don't think this is necessarily something that can be enforced by the board or something like that, but I'd like to bring it up as a point of respect that it would be great that if we could see a little bit more added respect given to the neighborhood by the staff as they come back and forth, whether it's noise or headlights or even garbage pickup up in front of the maintenance shop. Sitting right across the street from the maintenance shop and where the parking lot's at, I can tell you that during the summertime, folks will get off work and turn on their car and we'll sit out there for a good 10, 15 minutes sometimes with the headlights on, shining directly at our house. It would be just really a great courtesy if it was a policy that level of respect was given to us and maybe not having the headlights shine at us. And that'll only pick up now that the leaves have dropped, and the folks are across the street there getting off work and those headlights are shining in that space. So it's more of a goodwill gesture that I'm requesting than any sort of action by the Planning Commission, if that makes sense.
Jason, would you like to talk to that?
Thank you. First of all, I think you're the house right to the right of our driveway.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. I think we maybe met briefly when you moved in, but I'd be happy to walk the space with you and look at ways that we can work together to correct that behavior and obviously make it a more enjoyable place for you to be living in proximity to that building there. We can look at how the staff parks there, and how that property is used. So happy to connect that with you. I think we might have each other's contact, so would love to do that and open to that conversation.
Super, I appreciate that. In fact, we're kind of curious as to how you're going to be able to maintain the space during the winter with, golf carts being your primary mode of transportation back and forth. Are you going to be taking any of those maintenance operations inland, I guess you can call it, and away from the shop across the street here, or are you going to be operating different equipment?
We'll still use the shop. We're trying to figure out the right vehicle for transportation. To your point, just a golf cart in the wintertime being a bit less practical and a bit chillier, but we are looking to consider that. We'll still use the back maintenance space, as that's our primary shop. But yeah, we have to make those considerations kind of operationally of how to do so.
Cool. All right. I appreciate you hearing from us here. It's an important issue for us, but like I said, we enjoy you as a neighbor and continue to look forward to having good dinners at Earth and a drink here and there by the side of the pool.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, and like I said, I'll reach out after this meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I know that the gentleman didn't ask for any enforcement action by the board, but this strikes me as something that is something that changes in the winter. We talked about lighting and the change in lighting. We all, okay, we're not changing any of the lighting, but he's brought up an aspect of this where the
Headlights.
the leafing is changing and the headlights are already an issue and perhaps will be more of an issue. Is this something you could look at in terms of a physical barrier or with evergreen planting over time? I don't want to put an ugly fence in his face either. I mean,
No, of course. I think the space he's referring to is the primary driveway of that property.
Okay.
Most people would nose in, park with the headlights shining our
Right.
building.
But staff
However,
maybe
it is
not.
a wide driveway. My assumption is when it's not fully occupied, people do a quick U-turn
Yeah.
and then so they can get out easily because backing onto Goose Rocks Road is obviously not ideal.
So maybe it could be changed procedurally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we could
Thank
do a
you.
fence there, but on access, but happy to
Or
look at it.
would even want one there,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, but we'll look at how we can
Thank you.
maneuver vehicles accordingly, and we'll walk the space with Mr. Novak. Okay, yeah, absolutely. And Ralph was saying we could develop a policy for staff that we can share.
Yeah.
Just an acknowledgement. Our staff signs paperwork, obviously, to work for us, so we can put some, kind of code of conduct in there as well, about how they access that building.
I think, and once you establish the culture, it'll take care of itself.
Headlights out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, happy to explore all options on that. I would feel the same way. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more calls?
No more hands raised.
No more hands raised, so I think I will officially close the public hearing. So
The ball's back in our court.
the ball's back in our court, yes. So
Will you take a motion?
I guess I'll take, well, we have to,
Go ahead.
have we agreed on the 20 and 4 number?
I doubt it.
Okay.
You want to vote on the 20 and 4 number?
I would like to vote on the 20 and 4
Yeah.
number. As
And the
part of
fire pits.
approving the application.
I'm sorry?
And the fire pits.
I don't think they've.
The fire
applied-
pit will be a
isn't part of this
recommendation.
application.
Yeah, a couple of recommendations, I'm not sure, yeah.
Where are you going to roast the marshmallows?
Over the
They
propane.
wrote, they go good on propane,
A little
too.
propane torch, just.
Don't encourage them.
Okay,
Nope.
so we have to put a number. I know that Nina has a nearly complete,
I think the 4 outdoor with monitoring would be a good idea, but I'd limit it right now to 10 events during the winter months. Simply because we don't know, if lights are going to shine at anybody. We don't know what the sound's going to be like. We don't know how that sound travels. I just limit it right now and open it up if you want to come back, if nothing happens within a year or so, things look good, to asking to increase that number.
Would you consider 15?
Oh. No.
Okay. I'm asking, have to ask a question.
That is, while we like the standard 20, Hidden Pond is willing to reduce that to 15, excuse me. That's half of what we have during the other half of the year, but to get below that, just, we don't believe it's reasonable.
Well, that would have to include the 4 outdoor events.
Yes.
15, including
4
4
of which are could be outdoors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So we agreed on that, great.
What a
So-
negotiation.
All right.
I like
so-
to bargain more, though. How about half and half?
I just feel bad for the
Okay, so I will take a motion here.
I'll make a motion to approve the application with a recommendation that fire pits be converted to propane, only a recommendation, and that events be limited to 15, and only 4 of those can be outside during that period of time, during those 6 months.
Okay, do you want to talk about?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm sorry, do you want to add a recommendation on monitoring or measuring the sound?
Yes, I'm sorry.
pressures?
Let me amend my motion
Okay.
to include a condition that those 4 outside events are monitored for sound, and we get at the
Report
perimeter
back
of
to Werner.
the property, and Warner gets that report. And I'm not going to repeat that again.
No, that's good.
Yeah, Tricia will type it up for us
Yeah.
later. Okay, I'll second it.
I'm sorry, no, I thought we were going to get monitoring information and feedback and get a chance to decide whether we let it continue or not.
Well, I think we would get the sound information, and we decide what the path forward should be. I mean, it might be containment or, or whatever the path forward is, based on.
So you're suggesting that we approve it for 1 year? And
Well-
they have to come back with the information to continue it, or are you just saying we want the information and you can keep going?
Can we do that?
Well, I think the issue is we would get the information, and then we would formulate, we being the applicant, would formulate a mitigation plan.
No, you're
Which-
assuming facts not in evidence.
Well, I'm assuming that if there is an issue,
Ah.
that the applicant would propose mitigation, yeah.
Would implement mitigation to keep it within.
Well, I think we'd probably like to see the proposed mitigation in case we had some comments.
But, well, then we have to come back.
Why can't our mitigation be working with the code office?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
working with the
absolutely.
code office to mitigate.
To do the mitigation.
Absolutely.
The issue.
Issue of the sound being above the decibel limit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's fine with
We
us.
don't
What does the
mind
code office say?
dumping it all on Werner, it's great.
Yeah.
Warner just sits in his office anyway.
I think so.
Yeah, no, I think, having an applicant come, having a set period to come back is, I think procedurally potentially problematic.
Yeah.
In that I'm not aware that there are any conditional approvals or uses that you have in town that have that type of process or restriction baked into a set of findings. So I have no issues in terms of, receiving information from Hidden Pond, in terms of, their noise levels. We can establish where we want to see those measurements taken from, in terms of property line.
Well, you'll learn.
Because it's, there's, a property line's in the woods.
Yeah.
And so, that just wants to get established.
Well, property line
Which-
closest to the nearest abutters.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
So we'll establish where that wants to be taken from.
Well, we could do it like you do with the sewer monitoring and so forth, and leave it up to you.
That's right, yep, no, we can do that.
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have a motion, which we're not going to repeat.
I'm good.
And seconded, so Ed says yes.
I say yes.
I say yes.
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 Okay.
And I'm not going to write all that into this findings of fact, so it'll be 2 weeks before you,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
so we'll read the finding of facts next time, and thank you for coming.
Yep, thank you.
Good to see you guys. So, that brings us up to someone who just disappeared.
Jim just stepped back there.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm going to announce him anyway. We are to 52 Wilds District Road. Jim Logan, Longview Partners LLC, and this is a public hearing on his plan, which was a plan to, let's see, which plan is this? This is the existing driveway. Right, so this is changing from 2 to 3, and there he is, the man of the moment. Mr. Logan, proceed.
Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you being here tonight. Again, for John Noyes, the client, we are here for a public access drive, private access drive, actually, per your site plan review application process. We were here on October 19th when I presented the plan. David Hughes, the land surveyor, produced that plan for your signatures. We discussed at that time the existing driveway and the fact that it was John's original driveway, which he had improved to the extent that the fire chief had signed off on it. You folks decided at that time that no sidewalk was necessary, so we didn't schedule one. In the meantime, I got back to the town with the letter from the fire chief, which I trust you all received in the mail.
Yes.
I also took the time to update the authorization for the agent so that I could be standing here for John. We needed to update it to include the town within which we're working. And now we're back for the public hearing. So if the board has any questions or any questions from the public, I'm here to take those now.
Let's first go through the board. We talked about it pretty fully last time, I think, but
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
I don't have any new questions. Anyone else? Okay. So in that case, I'm going to open the public hearing, and seeing no one here, is anybody raising their hand for a public hearing on this guy?
No.
Okay. How many people, we still have people watching?
We have 7 attendees now.
7 attendees, all right. Anyway, so I'm going to close the public hearing and take a motion for approval. Someone,
I would move to approve the application.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll go the other direction on votes. So we'll start with Larry.
Approve.
Scott. Tom approves. Nina?
Yes.
Okay, so we have approved this, and we'll have a finding of facts read at the next meeting.
Thank you. I'll work with Warner to make sure that there's adequate paper copies. Are there adequate paper copies?
Yeah.
Oh, we have to sign it, right? So, yeah.
You're actually not required to sign. If you sign this plan, it's not a subdivision plan.
Oh, that's right, yeah,
You know,
okay.
So there's no
And so
requirement
there's
to
no
sign it.
recording requirement as well?
There's a recording requirement for the findings,
Okay.
you know, but not necessarily the plan
Okay.
itself. I mean, you're welcome to record the plan.
Okay, I'll discuss that with John, but
yeah.
the findings will be recorded.
Right.
Okay, let me know when they're available, I'll make sure we get them on.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, board members.
All right, so that does it for public hearings this evening. We have 2 new applications.
So before we leave.
And this one is item 221001, Kitty's Run, Christopher Copy Environmental. This is an initial review for, which will be described to us here. Proceed.
My name is Chris Colby.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm here on behalf of Jamie and Phil Schuman, the applicants. We're just seeking approval for one additional lot for the access drive at Kitty's Way. And in 2012, that access drive was approved to service 2 lots. I have basically parcel 1 and parcel 2, so we're just proposing a split to that lot. So we will now be servicing 3 lots. We did get some direction from planning and codes to just verify if the road was built in accordance with the approved plan, and using sub-meter GPS out in the field, we determined that the road was built within the approved right-of-way. That's it.
Just, is it centered in the right-of-way, just for?
What's that?
Is it centered in the right-of-way?
Actually, at that time, there wasn't, that requirement, I don't believe it had existed at that time.
Okay.
And it was, as the plan indicates, it was built in accordance with what was submitted back, I want to say, in 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just, so your lot 1 is actually two lots as far as the town is concerned, it's 16 and 16A?
Not yet.
Yeah, it hasn't been divided yet.
Yeah, it's a proposed lot division.
Okay,
Yeah.
but, all right, so there's one house on the great big lot
Yeah.
there, and then there'll be two lots two houses on the other, at the other end. But all we're approving is the road from 2 to 3.
That's
We're
right.
not
So what you had previously is that you had a previous set of findings that identified that the road had been approved for 2 lots. And so because the findings were specific to that, and because the town ordinance requires a planning board to approve a road that services, 3 lots or more, hence that's what, why they're here.
Right. The actual separation of the lots is what you do
That's
that in
right.
code
Separation of
enforcement.
the lots, because it's not a subdivision per the state statute, falls under the jurisdiction of the code office. Also, just a little bit of history on this. The reason why this had gone before the planning board back in 2012 was primarily for, a shoreline zoned crossing that had been done and had been reviewed and approved by Maine DEP, as well as the planning board in the town at the time.
Okay.
I'm going to confess to not having studied this in advance. But can you just really step back and tell me where the 3 lots are on this drawing I'm looking at?
There's one.
This,
There's one right here,
where are the boundaries of that one?
right here.
Down, the red,
That's right. Yeah.
okay?
That's the lot. That's
That's-
the first lot.
That's one.
And this black is the second lot.
That's 2. Where's the
Correct.
3rd one?
Well, they're proposing to split.
Ah,
Yep.
So we
Okay, you're gonna
did provide a copy of the survey, so we have a deed description of the
Go
lots.
back
Go
to
Mike, please.
Go back to Mike.
no, and I'm happy to do my homework afterwards. I just,
Yeah.
this was all just going over my head, if I can't even, 101 here.
Yeah.
So I'm saying there's 2 lots now. What's in front of this first lot now, where it says existing driveway? What lot is that?
Well, the lot that's in fronts off of Old Cape Road.
That's not it, that's not a part of this.
That's right.
But the road goes through it, that access.
Adjacent to it, yeah.
There's no home on it. There is, so that's 1?
No, this doesn't use that road. So you have
Oh.
a house here, right?
Yeah.
And that's it.
And now there's going to be two more homes,
Correct.
potentially, all right.
We did provide the survey that was done in 2014 for this division.
Good.
It's multicolored and it's in the packet.
All right,
So that'll explain the parcels, parcel 1 and parcel 2.
thank you. I'll read it, for sure.
Okay, so there's a house shown down here at the bottom, and that's the existing one with a driveway off of Old Cape. Got
Yeah,
it.
Werner was just pointing out that he doesn't use that driveway.
Right,
this
so that's not,
road-
so it's, one would be in this lot, the square lot, just above where that,
Yeah, I actually wrote it on parcel 1.
I think it's a labeling issue. You've been referring to lot number 1, but there's no indication on here what lot number 1 is, and that's why I think I'm getting confused, but now I understand it.
Yeah, I actually drew the text, and I can update that. Like I said, it's on the survey.
Right.
Which is attached, and that actually has a label.
It's on here.
Yeah, I'm really not, I'm not complaining about this, it's really just, I'm asking for help, that's all. Are you proposing to make any changes in this existing driveway as part of this?
No, we're just waiting for guidance on the hammerhead from Warner.
You're expecting to have to make a change because of the hammerhead, though?
Possibly, but we're just waiting for guidance from the town, their discussion with the fire chief on the hammerhead.
Yeah, so the very end, of the hammerhead, wasn't fully completed.
Yep.
And so just in discussions with the fire department, we have some new apparatus that's coming into town.
Yeah.
And so we're
Wants to be able to turn around.
That's right. So we're working on getting specifications from the manufacturer on exactly what is going to be needed.
Is this the one where you were considering a Y?
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
instead of a hammerhead?
That's right. Yeah.
How did you know that?
Because I was talking to Werner.
Oh, okay. So
Small things.
Just curious, do you have water? Is there a hydrant up there, or is he bringing, the fire department would have to bring in water too?
That's correct, yes. Yeah. There's no town water up there. So it's all well and septic.
So it'd be sprinkler systems in the houses and
No.
stuff? No.
No, it's not a subdivision,
Oh,
so
no.
13D systems are something that, that we talk about and consider in the subdivision process.
Oh, right,
Not a
right.
requirement, though.
Correct. But the main uniform building code does not require 13D systems in single-family homes.
Okay. So they're relegated to the garden hose?
No, he brings in water, the fire department.
Yeah, but before the fire department gets there, he's relegated to the garden hose.
No fire pits.
all right, so, but we're not approving the separation of the lots or any other issue, the size of the hammerhead or any of that. We're just saying.
Just the road.
That
You can build a road.
it was approved for 2, and we're saying approve it for 3.
Does the
Correct.
road have a name today?
It has a name now.
Kitty's
Oh,
Run.
Kitty's Run.
Kitty's Run.
I knew I'd heard that, yeah.
Is that a kitty or is that a person?
Okay, well,
I do, hi, my name is Susan Hill. I'm the Realtor working with Bill and Jamie Schuman. Thanks for having us this evening. One other item I just wanted to bring up with you guys, probably more of a housekeeping item, would be in 2012, when the Lovejoys came in front of the planning board regarding that division of the land. If we look in the findings of facts, there were 5 things that came out, and one of them is that the accessory apartments are not allowed without planning board approval. We wanted to see if we could go ahead and remove that line item moving forward. This is in the free enterprise zone, which does allow accessory dwellings. And then we do have that new state legislature coming in 2023, LD 2003, which does allow accessory dwellings for properties within the state of Maine. So wanted to see if we could go ahead and have that language changed.
I thought we already had accessory apartment
Yeah, we do.
in
and-
the LUO.
That's correct. And I think, this is one of those things where as modifications have been made over time, you've got an old decision, 2012, was some time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we've since made modifications to the LUO to, make ADUs more permissible. The legislation that Susan's referring to will make ADUs essentially a permitted use on all single-family home lots in the state of Maine.
Yeah.
So,
Depending on how next Tuesday goes, of course.
no, that's actually, it's baked into state law.
Okay.
And so, and so we have some work that has to be done every community has work to do at the local level to look at their ordinances relative to that legislation for consistency. And ADUs is just one, small piece of that.
Right.
So it's a situation where you potentially have a conflict now, right? You have this, restriction that was put into place, obviously well before any of this was known. And, you're going to, you have a set of findings that's going to conflict with state statute.
Right. Well, but for now, it conflicts probably with the LUO, which also has.
Which also identifies it as a permitted use, yeah.
Right, so we should just say the 2012 decision, which we should get copies of. Just say that is.
We can provide that language for
Yeah, that is overcome by successive changes to the LUO and is no longer in force, or something of that sort.
So the
it's in
LUO
conflict.
can override that?
No, I'm just saying that it's in conflict.
It's in conflict.
It's a permitted
and
use.
The LUO change came after
The LUO identifies an ADU as a permitted accessory use to a single-family home.
So would we need to get the approval of the homeowners association, basically, to do that?
I'll let them speak as to, I don't know that there is any kind of road, it's not a subdivision, so there's not a homeowners, there's not a HOA, there may be a maintenance agreement for the road. And it was a restriction.
But that wouldn't affect that.
That wouldn't affect that.
So I think if they agree, where was it written in?
In the findings.
The findings in 2012.
As a condition.
Yep.
I have a copy if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, so we would need to revisit that then.
Which you can,
Yeah.
as part of this application.
And then basically change that.
Just
Agree to
revisit
change
that
it.
when,
Right.
Yeah.
and just,
Right, you can specifically address it in the findings, for this application.
Okay.
okay, that seems reasonable to do that in the findings
Yeah.
too.
So we'll make sure that you have a copy of that.
Okay. All right, any more questions or comments on this? George? Larry?
No.
Scott?
No.
Me? No. Looks, okay, so I believe it's, the application is complete and we can, I'll move that the application is complete.
I'll second that.
So I'm going to take a vote here. Ed?
I agree.
Agree.
I agree. Scott?
Agree.
Okay. Well, in that case, we're done till we have a public hearing on the topic next time with
Want a case
85
manager?
other things we're going to have on by then. But,
You want a case manager, Tom?
oh, case manager, yeah, I do. Got any volunteers? I already took one.
I haven't done one for a while.
Good.
Ed took this one, okay. All right, well, that brings us to the final one, which is to, let's find it, which is 21002 37 Pier Road, Devon Proc, permitting with Proc LLC agent. And this is to remove, to fix up a dock that's, that needs new stuff underneath it, so.
Hi again, my name's Devin Croft. I'm representing Diane Cullen of 37 Pier Road. She's proposing to replace her existing wharf or dock, whatever you want to call it, to bring it up to today's standard, basically. New pile supports, new stringers, caps, and decking. And when she does that, she'd like to lift the cottage that's built inside the dock, basically lift it up to bring it up above the floodplain a little bit to satisfy FEMA flood zone requirements. And so the finished deck of the new dock or wharf would be at, I think, I have to look at that plan. It would be roughly 14 foot, and that's at mean low water, so it'd be 14 feet above the low water mark at 0. And the cottage floor, after it's jacked up, would be 1.5 foot higher than what it is currently. I think that's what we agreed would be an acceptable lift with Diane. And I noticed in the agenda, it says that the cottage was going to be moved on site. That's been changed to limit the stresses and possibility of damage to the inside of the cottage. We're just going to jack it up in its same location and rebuild the foundation, the piling and the timber caps in place. That way we don't exert any more unneeded forces on the cottage. And in turn, that'll keep the cost down a little bit as well. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. It's going to be the same footprint, same size wharf, and all materials will be, pressure treated timbers and hot dip galvanized steel fasteners and stainless steel decking screws. So pretty much your typical marine materials. And that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay, let me,
I noticed that there was no deed included in this application, and there should be one.
Okay, I think Diane may have a copy with her.
Yeah. But I don't know whether other board members received a copy of the deed.
I did not get a deed.
Okay, you should
I forgot to
get.
mention the DEP did approve the permit by rule, and that was forwarded to the town.
Good.
That was
Okay.
Quite a few
Good.
months ago, but that had a copy of the deed in that application package as well.
I haven't seen the DEP report either.
You have not, okay.
No.
Would you like to have a copy of that?
Yeah, well.
If we have a copy of the
April
PBR that
could
has the
just
deed in it,
Post it.
that'll solve
Yeah,
it.
yeah, we can
Did you get
post,
a copy of that?
we can post the well, so we don't necessarily get a copy of the whole application, we just get the signed off permit by rule,
I
from
can forward
DEP.
you a
Yeah.
copy of that entire application package.
Yep.
So you have that, as well as the pictures that were included.
That's
today.
probably a good thing to have.
Yeah, I should have included, I apologize for that. But
Yeah.
I can include that, as well as email a copy of the deed for all of you. Do I email that directly to April?
Yes,
She just- okay.
she'll distribute it.
So you're not doing anything with the float and the dock? The
They're gonna
dock?
reuse the existing float and aluminum gangway.
Okay, and the dock itself is going to stay at the same height?
The dock is gonna come up of
A foot and a
14
half?
inches. basically.
14 inches, okay, okay.
Okay, I notice this is not resource protection here.
Well, it is resource protection because it's out and over the water, so it's in the inner
Did I forget
title.
to check that one
Yeah.
off?
So it should be checked off then?
It should be checked off.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just,
So the cottage is actually non-conforming?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and the pier itself, just by virtue of, the size and the dimensions of it, its location is also, a legally non-conforming structure.
Is everything in that area illegally non-conforming?
Pretty much.
Just,
And it is a working wharf. They use it for removing and also putting their traps in spring and fall in the resource so that you can go fishing off of it.
okay.
So once
Why isn't this considered just maintenance of an existing structure, why is it here? I'm going to
The
ask
reason
my
I'm
question,
here
why am I
because
here?
It's over
Yeah.
50% replacement. If they had just done 50%, half of the wharf, we wouldn't have to come here, we'd just have the permit by rule and go through the code officer. But they said where it's over 50% replacement, we need to come before.
It's a
you.
complete replacement of, and again, because it's a non-conforming, it's a non-conforming structure.
Are you changing the location of the pilings, or?
We're reducing the number of piling by a lot. I mean, there's got to be 70 posts underneath that thing right now, and we're taking it down to just maybe 20. I can't, to be honest, I can't remember the number of pilings that are being proposed, but it's by far way less.
But you're not reusing,
The square footage of shading on the pier is not changing.
I understand that. It really is a new pier, though. You're pulling all the old pilings out, and you're going to
Yes.
put in new ones.
Yeah, it's a complete.
Where they belong,
Yeah.
in your opinion, yeah. Okay, thank you. It is a new pier.
So the existing use of the property is not just residential, then it's commercial if they're putting in traps and stuff?
Well, you get a mix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always historically been used as, as a commercial. It's a privately owned, but a commercial, there's commercial use there.
Okay.
So if you're removing all of the existing pilings, are you going to reuse any of the existing poles?
The what?
Well, wherever you pull out the pilings, you're going to, are you going to reuse some of those existing post holes for the new pilings?
A lot of the surface underneath that pier, I'd say 60%, well, maybe 50% is ledge. So a lot of it's going to be pinned to the ledge or anchored to it. And then the others will be driven with a vibratory. But some of them will fall in the hole, but the majority of them are going to go in a new hole because of the layout and, the structural aspect of the pier. So no, not all of them are going to fall in the same hole. I don't know if I answered your question.
There's no plan to do that. It might perchance, since there's
It may.
70 of them, but yeah.
Yeah.
Is the spacing of the boards of the deck going to be the same?
It's going to be the same decking material. I think they're using a 2x12 now, that's what they're going to use. And there's, I think, maybe a quarter-inch space between each board, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Isn't there a guideline
There
for
is.
spacing between the boards of
For your residential, for your residential piers, I think that specification exists for the for residential, and specifically where it's over, if it's over a wetland, if there's veg, this is, essentially over mud flat, and it's a commercial.
tidal water?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So once you jack up the shack, the building that's out there, what's going to be the elevation of the top of the roof?
I don't know the roof elevation. All I know is the existing elevation of the cottage as of now. And that is not, the elevation is not based on mean sea level. It's based off of, actually, no, it's mean sea level, not mean low water.
But the roof of the cottage will be the same, it's the same?
But just moving up the 14.
It's just moving up to
Foot
14
and a half.
inches?
Yeah,
Right.
So there's no expansion of the cottage?
nothing. It's just pretty much going to be the same thing, just slightly higher.
Does that cottage have plaster walls or drywall?
I believe it's a mixture of both.
Oh, you're going to be replacing plaster walls?
Oh, no, I couldn't, I think she had it all done. It's a beautiful cottage on the inside.
Okay. I just know what happens when they jack up houses, so.
Yeah, it'd be good to get it up because of the sea rise, so she's trying to get ahead of it and do it all at once.
Okay.
And doing the whole project now, or if we're approved, it prevents her from having to spend more money and do 2 mobilizations with a barge to come down and do it. So she's trying to save herself money and save the harbor impact of a barge coming in and out. And I forgot to mention, this has also been approved by the Department of Marine Resources for the construction as well. I think that was our requirement for the permit by rule application.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I think we're all good. So,
Going to move that this application is complete?
Okay,
Second.
all right, and let's just.
Approve, yeah.
Approve here.
Approve.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've approved this, so we will have a public hearing, gasp, next time, with about a dozen other things, it seems, but,
Do have one more question.
sure,
I'm scheduled for surgery for my back on the 17th of this month.
yes,
So is the next meeting the 16th, if I'm guessing right?
it's 2 weeks from today, yes, it would be the 16th.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I can be here for it.
You don't
You just
have-
can't eat anything before the
The next
meeting.
day, you're going to have to be somewhere 0 dark 30 to.
I'm good. I'll catch up on my sleep after.
Okay.
I have a full knee replacement on the
Good luck.
17th. I meant to tell you that.
Are you on Mercy? We might be from there.
That's where I had my back surgery.
Where are you going for?
We do need a case manager, George.
Say again?
Good luck.
I said, we need a case manager.
I'm the case manager.
Okay.
I did want to point out before we adjourn that that noise down on, the parties down on South Main Street, that is not me, those are my neighbors. I just wanted to,
Okay.
just want to get that written in
They
there.
said the same thing, George.
I know.
Double check, I owe you the permit by rule application as well as, make sure there's a copy of the deed.
Yes.
Is there anything else you might want, or are you happy with that?
Oh, that's good, I think.
Okay.
No,
Thank you very
if there are
much.
other permits that you had to have, we should have copies of them. But if that's it, we're
Oh,
fine.
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Okay.
well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, please.
can I
It
raise
looks-
one-
It looks like the
one-
the homeowner here has a question.
Oh,
I just don't want, oh, sorry. This is like so personal. George Dow and I got married in April, so my name changed. So it
Congratulations.
says Cullen on the application, but I have a legal name change now, not to Dow, but to my maiden name. So I'm Diane Broussard, just so you know that.
Spelling?
It's, first is D-I-A-N-E.
Yeah.
B-R-A-S-S-A-R-D.
Congratulations, Diane.
Thank you. I'm a lucky lady.
All right. Now we'll
Can I
take,
just raise a question? We had just one member of the public tonight speak over Zoom. It's still, I would so much prefer if we activated the video when someone, so we see their face. Does anyone else have that?
that has been a rule against that from the.
There was a,
I've
I don't
asked
think
that.
it was a rule, it's just as a practice.
It was a rule from on high, so you talk to the town manager if you want to change that.
So that's,
Why would there be a rule that says we can't look at people?
well, I don't think it's quite that specific, Ed. But, you know.
I'm reading lawyers' letters.
Practical.
What I would suggest, if you have a question about that, you know, that you would address that with Lori.
I don't mind.
Because that's a general policy that was established by the selectmen for
I don't mind
how the
doing-
Zoom meetings were to be
I
handled.
don't mind doing that, but I don't want to go bother doing that if the board doesn't have the same feeling. Is there any sentiment one way or the other on the board, or you don't care? Don't care?
I don't care.
I don't care.
I'm not going
It
to,
bothered me when
Just me.
some of them, it bothered me on some of them because I didn't know there was a policy. I just thought people were turning their cameras off.
Oh.
And that pissed me off, but no.
And prior to Zoom, before we got into,
Yeah.
that pandemic thing, which I hope you all remember, but before that, they were phoning in anyway. People were allowed to phone in, they could join the meeting by phone,
I
right?
don't remember that.
no, I don't remember that.
Couldn't they do that?
But my
No,
memory is just.
I'm getting shaken heads, apparently
No, I
not.
don't
No, we
recall
didn't have
it.
that. No bat.
Had to show up.
Yeah,
All right. I guess they could watch on the TV, but they couldn't join in.
yeah,
All
correct.
right.
Then I would move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Hey, we made it
Thank
before
you.
9. We
Yeah, very good.
didn't even have to tell them, come back next time.
Always learn new things every time I come.
It just seems, it avoids the.
I'm telling